So I'm so excited today because we are actually going to be having an interview with the illustrator for Three Little Sisters Learn to Get Along. And she is going to be talking about her experiences from when she was a child and her experiences today with illustrating books and all of that wonderful stuff. And I've had the wonderful opportunity to get to know this amazing woman over the last couple of years. So you're going to learn a little bit about that story today. And right now, we're going to begin interviewing with Renee Love. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you, Joanne.
It's so exciting to have you here today.
It's very exciting to be here.
You know, a lot of people are wondering so many things about you and the amazing work that you have done as a result of the Three Little Sisters Learn to Get Along. And one of the things that they're wondering is, what was art like for you as a child?
Oh, it was absolutely my release. It was my place to be me. I had so many other struggles as a child that was the one place that I didn't feel any stigma or fear. I really could just express myself, whether it was with a little clay sculpture that, depending on how young I was, didn't necessarily look like anything particular. But as I got older, I found it was really the place that I could be me. And that's just a wonderful feeling.
And what kind of feedback did people give you as a result of the type of art that you were able to produce?
You know, I mean, teachers were always, oh, good, you did what we asked you to do. Oh, this is wonderful. Mom, of course, thought everything I made was golden, and either ended up on the fridge or on display in some way, shape, or form. But the feedback I got was usually very constructive and very, very rewarding to know that what I was putting out there was being appreciated, because it was what I wanted to put out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. And so, you know, you went from feeling confident in your art, and then you kind of took a different trail in life, a different kind of career path. What led you to the career path that you ended up choosing?
Well, that's actually an interesting little story about when I was in grade school, and we had an art project that involved a perspective of a hallway with doorways, and they couldn't be any normal doorway. They all had to be irregular doorways. And so in doing that art project and really getting to have fun with this bizarre hallway with really bizarre doors, and I did so well with that project that the teacher actually sat down with me and she's like, you know, you're so good with math and science and you're so good with art. Did you know that there's a career path that you can combine all those things? And so she told me that architecture was a direction that I could go. And I was still fairly young, but this was really, really awesome news to me. And so I just grabbed hold of that and I went for it, and really just started to focus on that. And at one point in time, I did look at interior design and other design fields as an option, but I still just kept hold of that architectural idea because I thought it was the safer route, because I hear all these things about starving artists, and that's a little scary. So I really kept thinking I was taking the safer route. that changed, but
and what changed?
Well, the change came, well, as many of us know, a couple years ago, the economy took an interesting turn, and so we all had to learn to adapt. I was part of a layoff at my employer at the time, and unfortunately, you know, then what do you do? It's a world of reinventing yourself, and I had taken one watercolor class back in college, just one class with an amazing professor who really made it something more than watercolor. You know, it was more than just a watercolor class, but it really made me think, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. But then, you know, I was working and things just didn't lead me to be painting at that point in time. But then when I was laid off, it's like, okay, I had a friend who was graduating from college, and that inspired me to do a painting for her. So I pulled out the watercolors, and everyone's response was so encouraging that they wanted to see more work from me. So I started trying to do portraits and some other paintings, and I really did get a good response from that. But it is also still hard to get clients for that. But it, the watercoloring became an endeavor when, I needed A, a creative outlet, and B, I really felt like, I had to reinvent myself somehow, and I love my art so much that it just became something that I really dove into.
Yeah, and so when it came to then this idea of illustrating children's books, how did that all evolve?
Well, as you know, when we met at a women's networking group, because we were both doing our home run-based businesses, at the time I was also supplementing my income doing Tupperware, and we decided to pursue endeavors with each other. I think we traded parties, and the conversation led us to talking about your talents as a reading specialist. And I was very fascinated as a dyslexic that this, I wanted to see what could come from interaction with you, and you talked about your tutoring. And so when we went from, doing a party to you tutoring with me to we talked about me doing a portrait for you of your girls, and that led to an inspiration for you.
It sure did.
So it just became something that was, it was a very recent realization as far as in terms of, it was very quick compared to the amount of time that I had focused on the idea of architecture as a career for me.
Right, yeah. And it's interesting because when you made that picture for me, what was really cool about that is I was sitting down one time at my office, I had just finished working with one of my students, and all of a sudden my kids, I could hear them in the background. They're in the other room, right? And I can hear them saying, like, fighting and arguing and doing all this. And I'm imagining this sweet picture that we have here in the Three Little Sisters book. This is the original painting that you painted for me, featuring my girls. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're so sweet. And then all of a sudden it started coming to me, three little sisters sitting in a tree, Yelling, and because they can look so sweet, yet they can be fighting, the next second. So, that whole idea of the story then involved and delved into something more. And it's really cool how your one painting could inspire that, and now it's turned into this, and it's been a really cool experience. So, as you were creating this book, what was that like for you?
Oh, it was a new world for me, because it's one thing when you're taking a photograph given to you by a person and trying to transfer that into a portrait, whether it be one or three photographs that I'm working off of to turn it into a portrait. It's a different thought process to turn it into a book, in terms of you have a couple lines of text that you're trying to capture per page. So that was a very different world for me. It went from, this is a one-of painting and I'm just trying to capture the likeness of this person in whatever situation, scenario that I'm trying to capture it in, versus where I now have to almost invent these situations and decide what part of the text I'm going to really capture. Because sometimes, you go, depending on how much text is on a page, you can't capture all of that text in one image. But it really took me outside my comfort zone. I really had to work really hard at pulling from all sorts of different sources to get the right feeling per painting that then became the book. And you know, one of the perks, I guess, from having my degree that I have with the architectural background is the ability to take and digitally combine all of this so that we could publish it the way we did. And it just really helped that I had control over the layouts of the pages, that I could make sure that the feeling fit with the words and that the placement really helped carry through.
Absolutely. And you know, there's so many people out there that have this amazing talent with art that you have, and they've always wanted to create a book. What kind of advice could you give them?
Well, my biggest piece of advice is, if your talent lies in the art, in the creating the image, don't be afraid to reach out to an author. Don't be afraid, like you actually approached me about this book, which was fabulous because you already knew my background and you believed in my talents, which I thank you over and over again for. But the real thing is, don't be afraid to look for an author with a great story. I am not talented in writing stories. That is not my forte. My forte is taking other ideas or just glimpses of images and transforming them into an actual setting or a thing. And so, you know, don't be afraid to reach out and find that author. And then also, don't be afraid to be you. There are so many people out there in the art world that try to emulate other styles. You know, I look at watercolor because I mainly work in watercolor for the illustrations, that I used to look at my watercolors and then compare myself to other watercolors and go, oh, but I don't have that treatment of the media, or mine didn't turn out like that. And I used to criticize myself, and the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, but what makes me unique and what makes these images unique is that I have a different way of working with the media. I sometimes build up, you know, 6 layers of paint before I have the feeling and the depth that I want, because a lot of people look at my work and say, that's no way that's a painting, that's a photograph. And I love that compliment, but at the same time, that makes me a little bit more unique, because most watercolorists don't do that. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm inventing a new style. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be founding a new art movement. But don't be afraid. If you're starting out in the art world, don't be afraid to do what makes you happy with your art. If you want to go a different direction, or you want to treat the media a different way, or you just have your own style that's just not like anyone else's, just go with it. Be you. Don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah. And one of the things I just find amazing with your artwork is how in the world, with watercolor, you are able to do a portrait of a person. That just amazes me. I mean, I can't even paint an apple. So to see somebody who can, really take these spaces. And now 3 Little Sisters Learn to Get Along actually features my daughters inside of this entire book. And these really look like pictures of my girls. She is absolutely incredible. So it has been absolutely wonderful having this opportunity to interview you today. So I really thank you for your time and talking about and learning more about you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanne.